the Regulatory Standards Bill, and you're probably thinking, well, that sounds boring. It's one of David Seymour's bills. And what the bill does, the Regulatory Standards Bill, hasn't been introduced yet, but he is consulting on it, on how to make laws and regulations. So David Seymour, he's got this Ministry of Regulation. He basically wants to give it the power to scrutinise and be a gatekeeper for any new laws, and actually to go back and look at previous laws and kind of test them against a set of rules. It's all about limiting taxes, limiting regulation, and protecting individuals and property rights. Rules and regulations limit the freedom to use, obtain and exchange property. It's actually just about property rights and individual freedoms. It doesn't mention the Treaty of Waitangi. The Ministry for Regulation's just come out with a report and, makes some sensible suggestions about how to make the rules more understandable, more kind of congruent and consistent, and that's all good. So look, that's the regulation bill. It hasn't been drafted in its final form yet. It's still being drafted, so you won't find a copy of the bill. But what you will find is a consultation document online at the Ministry of Regulation. So you could Google that, regulations bill, and you'll go to that website. Alternatively, I'll put in the comments later, I'll put this QR code. There you go. I'll hold it up like that. So even if you scan that or take a snapshot of it on your phone right now, it would work. But that QR code will also take you to the Ministry for Regulation website. So look, it's a bill, but actually it's actually of constitutional significance. So this has been an ACT Party project supported by the Business Roundtable for decades. I'll see you in the new year. Ka kite.
The Honourable David Seymour.
Mr Speaker, with great pleasure I'd like to inform the House that yesterday I announced the next steps in the Government's plan to improve the quality of regulation by opening consultation on the proposed Regulatory Standards Bill. To lift productivity and wages, the Government's agreement is to include a commitment to pass the Regulatory Standards Act. And this bill has four components: a set of principles for responsible regulation, a mechanism to ensure regulations are consistent with the principles or justify departure from the principles, a recourse to enable New Zealanders to seek an independent assessment when a regulation does not meet the principles, and statutory powers for the Ministry. Consultation on the proposed Regulatory Standards Bill is open until Monday, 13 January 2025.
Supplementary. What are the principles of responsible regulation?
Well, Mr Speaker, the principles fall into three categories. The first is principles relating to the design and content of legislation, such as the importance of the rule of law and that fair compensation should be paid for the taking or impairments of private property. Secondly, principles relating to good lawmaking, such as ensuring regulation should produce benefits that exceed the cost of imposing that regulation. And third, principles relating to regulatory stewardship, such as eliminating regulatory burdens and burden and compliance costs and ensuring that the regulatory systems are fit for purpose.
Supplementary. How will the Regulatory Standards Bill improve the quality of new regulations?
Mr Speaker, the Regulatory Standards Bill is fundamentally an exercise in transparency. There's nothing in the bill that requires the regulator to follow the principles of regulation. However, it does require regulators to consider the principles and publicly justify why they shouldn't apply to any particular rule that they're imposing upon New Zealanders. If we raise the political cost of making bad laws by allowing New Zealanders to hold politicians and regulators accountable, the outcome will be better lawmaking, higher productivity and better wages for all New Zealanders.